I'm Ro. I'm 16 years old, and I lost my older brother about 2 years ago.
I'm 14 and I lost my stepdad, Jonathan.
I lost my older sibling, Sage, 2 years ago this month.
I lost my mom.
I lost my brother, Ishan. In a week, it'll be 2 years.
My name's Hunter. I'm 14. I lost my stepdad, Jonathan. He was 50. Sometimes after school on Fridays, he'd be home before me. So I would see him sitting on one of his favorite chairs, and I would come home and talk to him about his week, and he'd ask me about mine. He was a very down-to-earth person to talk to, and he would listen. It was just nice to really connect with someone.
I'm May. I'm 16. 2 years ago, almost this month, I lost my sibling, Sage. We were really close. We would tell each other things we didn't tell other people. They were just really talented in a lot of things. Like, they could kind of just walk around in nature and understand everything that was happening. I was always very impressed by them. We just kind of understood each other. We'd always had a really close connection. We were best friends, pretty much.
My name is Anish. I'm 15 years old. I lost my brother. His name was Ishan, almost 2 years ago now. The thing I remember the most is how we used to always, mostly when we were much younger, we used to always play on the Wii together. We never really had any super memorable moments. It was just a bunch of kind of memorable moments. I feel like our relationship was special.
My name is Ro. I am 16 years old, and I lost my older brother when he was 22. His name was Casey. He was good at everything, a little bit of a Renaissance man, played a lot of instruments. It was beautiful. It's really incredible to hear him play. And he was always just really happy when he was.
I'm Melina. I'm 19, and I lost my mom to suicide in November of 2020. Her name was Sonia. She never really treated me like a kid. We turned into best friends. That's what happens after you go through the mud with your mom and daughter relationship. She was gorgeous. She had the prettiest smile ever. I don't really look that much like her, but I wish I did.
Hi everyone, I am Steven. I lost my partner David almost 13 years ago. Why don't we start by talking a little bit about some feelings that you had when you found out?
I didn't believe it. Just complete, almost numb. It was just unreal.
I woke up, there was absolutely no one in the house, and there were these two cop cars outside. Two cops that were kind of just standing there in my driveway. And so I was just sitting there, and I was like, what's going on? I was just confused. Eventually I found out what happened, but I feel like those 2 hours where I didn't know what was going on, I feel like those were the worst.
We were all awake when it happened, so they left the house and then they just didn't come back. And we found a really short note on their desk, and then my parents went to go look for them, and I had to stay at home and wait for them to come back. Just a lot of fear for a long time.
I was very confused and shocked, and I still am to this day. Those feelings still arise. And I think it was extra difficult because my siblings had to tell me, which was really hard because I saw how much they were going through. And then having to tell me, I know that put them through a lot. And I think for those 2 weeks, I like pretty much blacked out. And honestly, thinking back to it, I can't remember anything because it was just like so much shock and grief and like disbelief all at the same time.
I wasn't with my mom or my stepdad like soon before it happened. I was with my dad, and like he told me that I was gonna get picked up by my mom, and I had no clue why. I had texted Jonathan, and he didn't respond, which hurt a lot more when I figured out why.
After you found out, was there someone you wanted to tell, someone you wanted to talk to?
I didn't necessarily want to talk to people about it, but I did like text my friends in the group chat and explain what had happened just
Sure.
so they would know and like be there.
I think the person I wanted to tell was my mom,
Mm.
even though obviously I couldn't. And then obviously the second person was my dad, but that was really hard too. But I didn't really find any relief in talking to anyone at that certain time, and it almost felt better, I think, bottling it up.
Kind of agree. The idea of bottling it up inside kind of felt better. I think I tried to talk to somebody about it, and it didn't help. Nothing like happened, and it felt like almost a waste of time, and I kind of regretted it later too. It was just like so raw at that moment, so too early almost to talk about it in the way that I needed to. It would have helped so much if I could tell Casey about it.
Yeah.
I felt that like for a while I processed it, just kept it to myself, and I didn't really ask for someone to be there, but my uncle came to talk to me, which was really helpful. He kind of like distracted me a little bit, but also it made me feel safer.
I feel like for me, it was never really talking to someone. I've always liked researching things, like it can be literally anything. So I kept researching the probability of him surviving that kind of fall. And so I think I spent close to like 20 hours just doing the calculations. And like it didn't really feel better, but at least it was like something to do because I feel like the time when I was like not doing anything was the worst.
Did you ever feel any pressure to cope or process it in any way?
I kind of felt like sort of pressured to grieve in like the 5 steps of grief, kind of in like a straight path. And like it made me feel kind of guilty if I felt a different way. And it like made me kind of like doubt my like love for this person, and which made me very like feel guilty that did I not love them or something. And that just kind of hurt a lot.
Generally speaking, not in my immediate family, but from media almost. Like the idea of grief, like how it's portrayed in movies and on like Instagram or whatever. It's like the portrayal of grief was just wrong. It felt wrong. Or just I couldn't connect to it. But it felt like because I couldn't connect to it, something about me was wrong sometimes, which was a lot to handle on top of the grief. My mom, she was really all about like the fact that we all grieve differently, and she like would say it multiple times. We all grieve differently, so it's okay, you know? And I think that helped like so much, but it took me a while to actually get it and get there.
I saw a lot of heads nodding when Ro was sharing that the way that grief is portrayed sometimes wasn't true to her. What were you thinking? What was the connection?
I think like Ro and her mom, like everyone is different. Grieving is different for everyone. You could be so happy the next day and so sad the other day, and it's just going to be different for everyone. And I did kind of feel put in a box a little bit, or when I would see people, like I'd be like, oh, they probably think I'm so weird that I'm not like sad right now. People just think that you have to be sad or you don't feel it, but you probably feel it a million times more even when you look very happy.
My mom also put like a lot of effort, a lot of research. She's bought me like a ton of books. And I feel like even though the books themselves weren't very helpful, the fact that she was like doing that for me was really nice, and it made me feel much better.
I mean, it kind of ties into guilt for me, but it was about like my immediate not immediate, but anger about it. I felt guilty for being angry. And the hardest part, like it wasn't just the fact that he had died. Somebody in group has told me before, imagine the hurt you would feel from losing a loved one who was murdered, and then imagine the anger you would feel against the murderer. And that is just so real for me. And like it hurt to like be so angry at him because I knew I loved him so much. But like it was just always there. It still is there. Like it was hard. It was also hard living with him. He was a complicated person and he made lots of mistakes as a human being. Like we all do, but it really made my life hard. And like that's like another tie in to like the fact that I was just really angry at him for leaving me in this like mess that he made me feel like.
I said that in group actually, and I love that you said that because that's what I was gonna say, and that's why it's like so complex to wrap your head around because I mean anger was the feeling that I was feeling. Like I was so angry, and I also think it kind of was brought into the fact that it was my mom, and like you think of your parents as like not really people a lot of the time, and I think that I was like, how could my mom do this? Like you're supposed to take care of me, like you're supposed to protect me, and I think. I mean, now as I'm getting older, I realize that they are very much people and just like us. But also, like, the anger and confusion that came with everything was what I really felt guilty for.
I think I was also angry. I don't think I was ever angry at him. I think mostly I was angry at like myself and everyone else for like allowing it to happen, I guess, because that was especially like at the like beginning of like my grief, I guess. I always felt like guilty. I always felt like it was my fault. Like I should have done something. I should have done something differently. But then I realized that no matter how much I think of that and like think, oh, I could have done this, I could have done that, it's not going to change what happened. So it's not really worth my time and energy to kind of to think about that and like what could have been different because it's not going to be different.
I also feel angry a lot, but I think another feeling that kind of really gets to me sometimes is actually apathy, where everything just becomes too much. And then I kind of stop feeling sometimes for like a month or a week or something. And I'll feel bad about not feeling anything because I kind of internally see that as not caring about them. But sometimes I just don't really feel or think at all. I just kind of keep going.
Yeah. That like feeling of numbness, it comes back, circles, like, but it's almost like you forget and like you're just like on autopilot almost, at least in regards to like feeling grief.
I think for me, I guess since it was like so difficult, kind of like raised my like tolerance or something. So I always feel bad now because if something happens to someone else, even like me sometimes, I don't really feel as bad for them as I probably should. I always feel really guilty about that. Like, I'm not giving them the support they would need at the time because for me, that's like not the worst thing, but like obviously it depends on who it is. And I kind of forgot about that.
I connect with that majorly. I think like I still have empathy for people, obviously. I just think that like mine is just kind of on a different scale. And like since I've been through so much and seen a lot of pain, it's really hard for me to like sometimes even with my friends, just like empathize with them on the smallest things. But I also have to remember like, you know, their like biggest trauma or like biggest hurt is the same as my biggest hurt. It's different.
It was therapy. That was like the big thing. I started it like about a month after. In the beginning, I was really against it. I didn't want to talk to someone, especially someone I didn't know. And I think she helped me answer a lot of questions and like helped me understand. I think overall, if you find someone that you can like connect to, it's really good.
The best thing that happened for me was to actually find people who maybe they didn't go through the same thing, but they knew how to hold my pain exactly the way I needed them to without me telling them. Like they just were there and they were happy to be too. I think that was really important for me to actually grow and keep doing life and just stay with it and be happy about that too.
I didn't like realize how much I needed to talk to people like who understood. And I found a therapist who like her father committed suicide. So like she also understood me, which is like crazy. I don't even know how I found her, but it just felt really good because like obviously my friends don't really get it, and like other than my family, I didn't know anyone going through my situation, so it made me feel better.
What about the connection to others your own age, other teens? What's important about that for you all?
I was very lucky to have like really good friends that I've had since like elementary school. And I feel like there are a lot of other people that I know who struggle with a bunch of different types of problems, but a lot of them don't really have anyone outside of their family to talk to. They don't have any like outside view. And I feel like you really gotta find those people in order to like truly kind of like come back into society, I guess.
I definitely had met people that had been through like very similar situations as me and like totally not agreed or like could not confide in them. And just because someone's been through something similar as you does not mean that that is like your person. And I've also met people that have nothing in common with what I've been through and can totally like hold my grief, like as you said, and hold my pain and like willing to be there for me.
For me, like going back to those books that my mom bought me, they were all written like by adults, even though they were targeted for teens. And I feel like they don't really know like exactly what it's like. They know what loss is like, but they don't know what like loss, I guess, like, as a teen is like. And I feel like it just didn't make me feel like any better from their perspective, because I feel like whatever they were saying, like it's true, but it's not what I was looking for, I guess.
What are some things that really haven't helped?
I think other people bringing it up in group settings or like telling other people for me, that like doesn't rub me the right way. It's frustrating like not being able to kind of hold that to yourself. Not even like what they say, just like that's kind of my own thing. And I don't like being talked for.
I think it's a little bit of the opposite sometimes. Like, a lot of my friends will avoid trying to talk about anything in that vein. Like, they won't, if something reminds them of Sage, they won't talk about it, or they'll talk about it with each other, but not with me, because they think it'll make me feel bad, but it really just makes me feel kind of like nobody else cares.
I feel like I'm connecting with both of those things. Like on one side, I've been in situations where people have brought it up without me, like present, and it feels a lot like they're outing me, like on like a different, like this is definitely like my private thing, which is, it just doesn't make sense for them to like tell somebody new who doesn't also know me like that. Like on that level, that's definitely not helpful.
I also don't like when they like talk about it without me or like kind of try to hide or shelter me from things because I feel like I'll get upset because it feels like they're treating me like a baby or like very fragile when I feel like I should decide that for myself. And just because this happened to me doesn't mean I'm in like some awful position where you have to shield me from everything. Like I'm still the same person.
I think for me, my mom telling my teachers about it was actually really helpful. So that differs from like you. Also, there was a time where like I didn't want anyone to bring up like even like the topic of suicide. Like I wanted to avoid it as much as I could. But then like I kind of realized that that wasn't helping me. So then um, I kind of like told my friends that, like not directly, but like I started making jokes about it, and then that actually really helped me. I think like being able to talk about it was much better, and now like I don't like it when people like something doesn't go their way and then they say, "Oh, I'm gonna kill myself." I really don't like that. I feel like the topic in general is fine, and I don't think like that's really a big deal.
I feel like I'm carrying around the weight of a secret that isn't even mine. And I'm like, when people ask me like how my mom passed, well, sometimes I just lie about it because I'm like, don't want to get into that. or I'm like, oh, mental like illness, like mental health issues. But it's just like, yeah, it just feels so shameful for even me to say it. And it's like nothing that I did or like anything, which I wish it didn't feel like that. And like, I wish I could just say that and people wouldn't have the reactions that they did and it wouldn't put me in that position.
I guess in that sense, I've been very lucky. Anyone who I guess deem as like worth talking to is able to like learn that about me. Like it's not really a secret for me, I guess, but I don't go openly telling people. But also like I'm perfectly fine telling them that he's gone and why he's gone. So
I wonder if anyone has a reflection about how their school or teachers, how they were supportive, or what are things you might share with them?
like my school is like was really great. I really loved my teachers and everything that they did. Like my principal, assistant principal, and counselor and everything, and a school psychologist as well. They were all very helpful, and I feel like that's not something that everyone gets. I feel like I'm very lucky for that. They knew what I was capable of as a student, and they tried their best to help me stay with the class um, and like know like my limits, I guess, and try and work with those.
My worst situation was when somebody had talked about it without me and told a lot of people in my school, and that was really frustrating. I actually ended up switching schools because of it. But I ended up in a transfer school, and I told my co-directors, a few teachers, and like I kept it pretty close, but I told the people who I guess I knew or I guess could help. Because school is like, you're there more than you are home as a teenager, especially. I feel like these are the people you're gonna need in your space to help you out because things are gonna come up. And so I think um, there's this one teacher there, and he's really been like a blessing for me. He cares, and like so when he notices something is like a little off, he'll just like reach out. He'll just be like, "Hey, what's going on?" And like we'll either talk about it or like he'll just help me out, and, like make sure I have everything I need. Having even just one person in your school that will do that for you is just really important.
I ended up dropping out for a little while, and I made it up through summer school, and the counselor was really helpful, and he kind of set everything up so that I would still be able to graduate on time. But it kind of skewed my perspective on school a lot, I think. And I still haven't quite figured it out. But
Yeah. Sometimes curriculum will rise up in the school, or even when some programming comes in around mental health or suicide. And I wonder if you have any reflections for educators or other teens how to kind of work through some of the curriculum that might rise up around in literature, or when there's some programs that come in that are trying to be supportive.
I think sometimes timing is a big issue with those situations because, like, I know, like, right after, like, people will come in, like, the week after or, like, month after, and that just puts a lot of, first of all, attention on that person that goes to school, and then also just that family, which is just terrible. Like, they probably don't want to sit through that. So I think it's a lot about timing and then also the way that they go about it shouldn't be like singling someone out and like taking them out of class in front of everyone and like it should be like a very private thing because they already are going through enough.
My teachers were always great. They would always like warn me like, oh, in this book, this happens, or we will be having a mental health unit in health class. Because I think it's more the surprise that really gets you. So I think when you're prepared for it, like you can kind of deal with it. But also, even if you can't, like I've had to leave class like a couple times. Like it was just kind of it was like these like kind of random things. Like I already wasn't feeling so great, and a character in the book, her mom died, and like that really just did something. And then I left school early. Being able to kind of be open with your teachers and be open in general, I feel like that's something a lot of people don't do, but it's been really helpful for me.
When I'm surprised, I'll just leave. Like, And like I try not to be too ashamed of it either. Sometimes it's just a little too much, so I'm like, okay, I need a break. Thank you.
I took a really long time off school, like very long, like put me very behind. And like obviously at the end of it, I was like, why did I do this? Like I'm so behind. Even more stressed out than I was. But then now in the long run, I'm like, I totally needed that. And like I would not take it back.
I feel like knowing that like if you have to like miss a period, go to the bathroom, right? Go see your counselor or something like that, or even just go home. I feel like knowing that you can do that and knowing that like it's okay to do that is really helpful, but also like you shouldn't really abuse it. It was really helpful. Like people were pushing me, like my mom, my teachers. I think I missed the majority of the first month of school, and that was not great. But then once I started going, I was able to keep like a long streak of going.
I like that. Like you should know your boundaries. I'm kind of scared of just not taking care of myself enough. I think it's so important. And it has changed my vision on school. We don't care for people enough in these environments. So sometimes you need to take care of yourself, even like in these like little ways.
I feel like after this happened, my like outlook on a lot of things changed really drastically. Like I gave myself a lot of leeway. Like I was like, okay, this happened. Like you don't have to do this. Or like you don't have to go there. Like I totally had a vision for myself and like who I was going to be and what I was going to do. And then like everything changed.
This is like super philosophical, but like the fragility of life, I was like, oh, what's the point in like going to school if like you could just get hit by a car and it's all over? Like there's just like no point. And I feel like that was the worst time for me when I was like, I just had no motivation just for like a pretty stupid reason. And then, yeah, I guess like finally getting out of that was like really good for me.
I kind of connect a lot with that, and school actually helped me kind of because it wasn't like it kind of had some like sort of distraction and a way I could really like focus on something other than just like kind of like sitting with my emotions without a lot of help. And I mean, some days it's good to do that, but school kind of gave me like a structure and didn't really like let me fall into like some sort of like spiral of my own emotions.
Yeah, I agree with that a lot. For me, actually, school was kind of something I felt I had control over. Like I kind of felt like everything else had spiraled and I couldn't grasp on anything. But if I worked really hard on my homework, that did have an impact. So I think I kind of got a little too into it. Like it's kind of bordering on unhealthy, but it's something.
Into
So,
school.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rose shared the idea that it's always going to be there. What does that mean for you?
I mean, it's not something like we can forget about and it's never going away. And I think that just means that like there's always going to be something in the back of my head. They're always there. And even when people like talk about suicide or like it gets mentioned in a show or a movie, I try to be like, oh, like that doesn't make me feel like special or like it doesn't speak to me, but like it always will. And I can't really act like it doesn't.
I guess for me, it's just kind of like I'm learning how to live with it, and I guess that's like my goal right now. You'll always be like carrying something extra that most people aren't, but like I guess once you carry it for a while, you kind of get stronger, and you kind of you learn how to just live with it. And I think that that's something that I'm, I guess, looking forward to. I hope that one day I can just live with it.
For a while, it kind of made me feel like I was gonna be stuck feeling the same way for like the rest of my life, and that kind of went away after a while. But still, the fact that I'll like never have like another experience, like new experience with that person, really like hurt a lot, and I still feel like I'm like expecting something or like something to change, but I like know it won't. I just have to kind of like cherish what I've already had and move on kind of, but like not forget.
I think it's kind of like adapting to all of your losses because like you lose one person And like for me, it was my mom. So I'm like adapting to like my kids like aren't gonna have a grandma. And like I'm not gonna have like a mother of the bride. And there's so many things that I wish that she was there for and so many different roles.
Sage was actually really, really good with kids, so I always wanted them to be like the cool uncle for mine, kind of missing that same thing.
I wonder if you could spend a moment and maybe share with each other what's something you've learned.
I think I've learned how to like overcome obstacles, I guess, because there's never really been something like that tall of a hurdle before in my life. I learned a lot about myself and a lot about like other people as well. Now, because of that, I have like an amazing support system in my family, in my friends, my teachers, just other adults, other kids. And I think I would have never had that unless this happened. So I learned a lot.
I learned that I'm way stronger than I thought I was. And thinking back to like how I felt when I first realized what happened, I don't think I ever would have thought that I would made it here, which I'm very proud of myself for and proud of all of us for. And I learned that when something so terrible happens, a lot of good things come with it. I have a very different outlook on life because of it. I mean, if I could go back, obviously things wouldn't have happened, but I wouldn't want to change the person I am today. And I'm so glad that I stuck around to find that out.
I think the biggest thing I learned is that, I mean, it is possible to survive through something like that. Like, a lot of the times you would hear about bad things happening and you could never comprehend what it must have felt like or how you would even get through it. I mean, you just kind of do. You don't really think about it much. Just keep going, and then you're still there.
I feel like I learned a lot how to process emotions better and really like not just understand how I feel, but who I am as a person and why I feel this way, which really helps further myself and like just trying to process.
Thank you, Hunter.
I learned a lot about myself, but like through that, I think the most important thing, this is gonna sound so cheesy. Like, I learned how to love myself, which was like something I was terrible at before. Got really bad after Casey passed away. But like through everything, I just learned how to like be happy.
Thank you all. You're also brave and strong and just fantastic people. So thank you for spending this time.
Your adults and I have been sitting in another room listening and watching and being incredibly moved by what you all have been talking about. And so I guess I want to ask the adults first. What did it feel like for you as you were watching these teens talk?
I was very proud of their bravery and their ability to articulate their feelings and the wisdom. I really had no idea that they were that wise.
No, I agree with Moon. Actually, with each of the kids, actually, not just Anish, the way they were able to explain some of the feelings, even some of the things, we sometimes stumble trying to explain the way they have been able to find positives in things. It was very touching.
Honestly, it shed light on things that worked and also things that may not work. And I think both of those are very valuable for anyone that's trying to support and be there.
Yeah, I was similarly moved by just the grace that you mentioned, poise. What incredible human beings we're surrounded by.
I've never seen other teen really talk about that. I've seen how May grieves and talks about things, and I'm just amazed how different they are, and just seeing different perspective from different teenagers, and kind of felt like other teens just basically telling what May hasn't been telling me about, and I learned a lot. I mean, I feel like I got healed just by listening to them. So optimistic. I feel like I'm always constantly trying to swim above the thing, and somehow kids already know how to do that. You know, for me, I feel like I just lost my past, and that's the end of it. But then, kids has future.
Like I'd want to get in front of things to make it so that it would be safe for my teen, and listening to them, I feel like I realized that that they're incredibly capable, and it's a navigating something that's totally unfamiliar, totally unfair, but to trust in them, to really trust.
This is actually specifically to Anishta because I don't know the others well enough. One of the things I realized on a couple of the topics he was speaking, and this characteristic I did not know about Anish. She's very forgiving of some things, and about some segments he was talking in very positives. He mentioned quite a few of the positives. He didn't remember the negatives. That I thought was eye-opening.
I actually thought that it's a little bit sad to see them needing to mature. I'm proud of what I heard, and then I was amazed how articulate they were, and what I learned, like, you know, how Anish is and how I understand Anish is not too far away. You know, that was kind of a reassuring that, like, you know, like, you know, where we are is okay. Like, I don't know if I made sense or not, but that was reassuring at it, yeah.
I mean, the complexity of the grief when you have so many people grieving at the same time is just, you know, I'm grieving and so focused on my own grief, and Hunter's grieving, and I feel like maybe I haven't been there enough, wishing I could do more, you know, knowing that I did the best that I could do and that I am doing the best that I can do, but really having him open up and be able to hear what he had to say makes me feel closer to him, because he doesn't communicate a lot, so it was really like extra moving to hear what he's been keeping inside.
I spend a lot of time talking with parents, and they are always so worried that their teens aren't talking to them and that they don't know really what's going on in the minds of their teens because they're not privy to what's going on. And so I'm wondering if you've heard anything today that reassured you, that lets you breathe a little easier.
Everything that Hunter said, like we really haven't talked a lot, and so this was a huge deal to hear everything he had to say, and his feelings about missing him in the future and him not being there for the important things, and just knowing that Hunter is processing is just very reassuring.
We always talk that we have to find a way to live a life with him, and that weight doesn't get any less. So we have to kind of grow ourselves stronger to carry the same weight, and then, but it gets a little easier because you get stronger. Sometimes it's a beautiful conversation, sometimes it's not. But then I feel like he is getting a stamina. Even little by little he is, and that's very reassuring for me.
I have no idea how to take care of May sometimes. You know, like as a parent, we're supposed to know everything, but when it comes to this, I am barely making it myself. And I feel sorry for May that I'm always this kind of, like, I don't know what's right and I don't know what to expect. May is very private, so she doesn't say much, but in the dinner table, we just hold hands each other and we don't say anything. And I feel like that's what she needs sometimes, instead of me telling her something or talking about something. But is that the right thing to do? I don't know. But I think I'm just trying to do like what I feel is the right thing. But ultimately, I don't know what's the right thing to do.
I think you're doing pretty good. Yeah.
How about the other adults?
It's creating that holding space for whatever needs to arise for Ro, and letting go of opening into the space of losing somebody that's so precious is like opening to this beautiful wisdom to know when to hold hands. But it's also opening to realizing that you know almost nothing about what's possible. And seeing how much you don't know can feel like looking into a very big void. And that's not the place that we were kind of taught to be parents from, to come from a big I don't know mind. But with this grief, letting go of what I thought things should look like has been tricky, but absolutely necessary. And I think in that process, Ro and I have actually grown extraordinarily close and really connected.
I'm interested, Erna, in what you see your role is in terms of supporting Milena and how you try to show up for her.
You know, Milena is an incredibly strong person. I've known this about her since she was 10 years old. But being someone that came from outside of the family, and I consider them family, I really took on more of an older sister role, and just recognizing that because she is strong all the time, it can sometimes feel like the world is on the strong person's shoulders. And what she needs one day may be completely different from what she'll need the next. And her grief can appear completely different, but it doesn't mean it's not there. So it's really just about asking and being there for exactly what she's asking for. So outside looking in gives me just a completely different perspective, which allows me to kind of fill in that gap any way I can. You know,
a lot of things.
I mean, we are very close, obviously, and you know, Milena, once she trusts you, she loves with her whole heart, and she has a big, big heart. Tough exterior, but when she's there, she is there for life. So it's just peeling back the layers can be a little tricky, and just figuring out the best way to communicate so that she understands my intention as well. I think that's really important.
And are you getting what you need?
I think I am. I think I have a lot of support systems, and Erna is definitely a really good one. And what you said is really true. I was agreeing the whole time, nodding my head. But yeah, I think there's certain people, and I'm like definitely type A of that type that is just like very hard exterior. It takes a lot to push back the layers, but when you do, I'm a very emotional girl, deep, deep, deep down. So it takes a while.
You said it can be hard when everyone's grieving the same loss at the same time. So I'm interested in what you've noticed about how the loss has impacted the relationships between and among the family members.
It really tore us apart. I mean, initially we thought that we kind of shared this grief, and then, we actually commenting each other. We kind of brought us together. But we got divorced 6 months ago. I don't think that, it's solely because of this suicide, but it certainly affected that. As far as the relationship with May goes, I think we're still pretty close. And I think I kind of drive her mad because I have twice the time to spend with her now. And sometimes she complains, but I think she knows why.
That is true. I think, for us to go on, we prioritize Anish's day-to-day and the future, so we kind of build the harder shelf outside so that the environment is kind of how to call it, like stable. Like it doesn't work every day like that, but we'll figure it out, right?
Hopefully it'll change someday, but simple things like whenever we were all home together, we used to eat dinner together. Now, sometimes, and it's like, even if we try it, we think it'll be forced because, there will be nobody in that fourth seat, right? So basically, day to day we make do, right?
The family is profoundly fractured. It's just a totally different space that we now inhabit. And in that aftermath, somehow there's love. And it's like, how can love be this big that it can persevere through something like this? Something so unimaginable, so impossible. And then I just feel like I wake up every day and I'm like, wait, another day? And then I look at Ro and I see her brightness, and it's like, it's even brighter than it ever was. It's like, where were my senses? Did I have my eyes open before? I think my feeling with my children is just, they just seem like such jewels to me now, such treasure, something that I indulge in a way that I guess I just didn't know how to, or I just didn't have that part of me wasn't awake the way it is now. That feels different.
What Claire said about just being more awake, I think when you're just blown wide open like this, all your senses are heightened. And so in a way, you're really living, ironically, because you're just been blown wide open and there's no protection anymore. We're so busy in our daily lives that we kind of just go through the motions, but when that's all stripped away, something beautiful comes from that. And I think, me slowing down in life and seeing what's important has been a gift for the kids. And, that's something I never want to forget.
So I'd like to go one by one through the adults and have you each speak about what you will take home with you from your experience today, not only of listening to them, but listening to all of the teens.
No, as I earlier, one of the things is, and Anish and all the teens were talking about how they have found a way to look forward. That is something, because sometimes we don't talk about those looking forward, but that was something I think I'll take from this.
I will trust you. And if you tell me to back off, I'll back off. That's actually the hardest part sometimes when, we want to help, like I want to help, but then, he said, now back off, then I'll back off.
That's a hard one. I don't think I can promise to back out or back up. But I'm always there, and you know where to find me when you want me.
You've reaffirmed my thoughts on the fact that you're wise well beyond your years. And I will continue to trust that you know how you're handling your grief and that you're searching for avenues to find the support you need and that you're open about that. There's never been a day that I worry that you were hiding how you felt or what you needed. And I certainly can promise you to communicate that with the rest of the family as well.
Yep. Thanks.
Ro, what a beautiful thing you've offered to other teens that have gone through something like this. And I see that you can be extremely strong. And I want to remind you that you don't have to be strong and you don't have to take care of everybody. You don't have to fix this, that you can rest. So I'm gonna make you space for that.
I just want to say that I'm very sorry that you have to be here. I wish we could just come here to have fun. This is our first time in New York City. And I wish I've never met any of you here. And I'm very sorry for all of you too. That we have to be here. And I'm just really proud of you that you come out, tell your story, and I'm just so happy to be here with you.
I'm going to ask the teens to do the same thing and say whatever it is you'd like to say to them.
I feel like we don't do enough stuff anymore, and there's a lot of stuff we don't want to do anymore. So I feel like we need to find, something to do. Yeah. And also, thank you for finally trusting me. It only took 15 years. But yeah, I think it's whatever we're doing, it's like kind of working at least. So hopefully it'll start really working.
To know that I'm not completely alone in the way I feel and that there's always someone I can talk to that will know how I'm feeling.
I'm nervous. You're pretty much my best friend, and I pretty much tell you everything. I'm really glad we went through this experience, and I feel like I learned a lot about you. And I was kind of only expecting you to learn stuff about me, but you're a really good listener, and I feel like you know more about me than I think you do. Love you.
I can't promise that I'll remember that there's always a place for me to rest with you, but I promise that when I do, you'll be the person that I want to rest. I promise that you'll be the first person I think of, and I'll come back and find you.
Thank you for always being there for me. And sometimes I might seem closed off, but I'm going to try to be more open about how I'm feeling.
Yeah. It's hard for you, right?
Yeah.
To open up. It's okay.
What I'd like to ask each of you to do, pretend that good friend of yours just lost someone they love to suicide. What do you want them to know?
I don't really know. I feel like everyone's definitely different, and I guess always reach out to someone. Always have, I don't know, someone on your bench, I guess, someone in your corner, and I guess it gets better. It never goes away, but it does get better.
Never feel like that you're completely alone. There's always some person or something you can do to express and talk about how you feel so you don't have to keep it all inside.
I would say accept all of your feelings and they're all valid, and you do not understand how strong you are until you are pushing through your situation. And the person I was at the beginning of my experience is definitely not who I am today, and I'm very proud, and so will you be.
Remember that your grief will always be unique to you, so there will always be another unique person out there who will want to help. And remember that they will really want to help you, so go to them and you'll find the right person.
The pain doesn't really go away, but it gets a lot more manageable, and you learn ways to deal with it in more healthy ways. And good things can still happen too, despite all the bad.
I am so sorry for the reason that we know one another, and at the same time, so grateful to know you and so incredibly proud of you. So thank you for sharing yourselves, your stories, your humanity with us. Take good care of yourselves and each other. Thank you. When I lost my brother, Stephen, I was an adult, but I had a 15-year-old brother and a 19-year-old sister at the time. And there was nothing out there for them. That was in 1993. And so I've wanted for all these years to somehow create something where the teens who lose someone to suicide can hear from each other. That's why I got involved in this. I'm wondering what brought you to it.
13 years ago, I had my own loss to suicide, my partner, David. And then I knew I wanted to make meaning or find purpose in the loss. And so I kept thinking about what I learned as an educator, that when teens can hear other teens, they listen.
I was struck by how much they want agency. They didn't want their parents making the decisions for them. They want to own this process.
And it's not that they necessarily want to push their parents away, but sometimes the reason they do is because they know their parents are struggling. And so they want to step back to give their parents the space to do what they need to do. But they also want to kind of grow in it themselves. You can see the power of that.
These kids both want the autonomy and the agency to deal with the loss the way they want to, and at the same time, they are still in need of parenting and support.
I heard it today. I can do this. I can grieve, and I need my space, and I need you. It's both of those.
Where do you start?
It usually starts with something as simple and just a check-in. How are you feeling? What do you need? Is usually my 2 questions I start out with. And then it's really listening. It's digging a little bit in the kindest way. It's building that relationship. And then over time, when we build that trust, all of a sudden, they just go.
I see why the teens are so crazy about you.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.